Hello all! So I just got back from seeing Ghostbusters, the remake of the 1980s classic, and the supposed most controversial film of all time, going off the internet buzz. Well, I just saw it. I've been looking forward to it all year, as you can probably guess from my past videos, and I just saw it, so here's my review. Here's what I thought was good, here's what I thought was bad, here's what I thought was even, Steven. Here's everything I thought about the movie. Okay, so first, since a lot of people do want to hate on this movie for very questionable reasons, I might put out there, let's go over the cons. Let's make everybody that wants to hate this movie happy. Let's go over the cons first. Cons, just to make everybody happy. So the cons of this movie were very simple. And no, right off the bat, the first con is not the Fall Out Boy version of the Ghostbusters song. Yes, I heard that song. I heard the Fall Out Ghostbusters version of the song. It's atrocious. It's one of the worst songs I've ever heard. It is the worst song I've ever heard. It is like, it doesn't even know what kind of music it wants to be. It's all over the map. It has no solid beat. It's like pure crap, and I have not talked to one single person that liked it. And the makers of this film were also aware of the fact that that song is pure crap, because it is literally in this movie for 11 seconds. I am not kidding. They made that big deal that this is the theme song in the movie. It's in the movie for 11 seconds. It's almost like the makers of this film hired Fall Out Boy, they got them to make a song, then they listened to the thing, and they were like, whoa, this is shit. We paid so much for it. What's the bare minimum that we can put this in the movie? 11 seconds? Okay, if we gotta put it in there. And yeah, it's literally in the movie for 11 seconds. So it's in there so short, I can't really call it a con. But yes, that song is bad. It's a bad song. Don't listen to it. Thank God it's barely in the movie. Now the real cons is, first off, there is no Ghostbuster montage. In the middle of the movie, there's no montage of the theme song playing while the Ghostbusters run around busting ghosts. It was the best scene in the original. It's the best scene in the sequel. It just, to me, feels like a needed, essential part of these films. And there's no montage of the Ghostbusters run around busting ghosts to the traditional song. It never happens. That is sorely missed. I was waiting for it throughout the whole movie. It never occurs. That's the first con. The second con is it just didn't feel as epic as the original. And I think it was because it was more focused on comedy than the original. Like, it had a lot more comedy in it. It had a lot less scary moments. And as a result, the stakes did not feel as high. Also, they don't flush out the villain nearly as much as they should. I think if he got some more screen time and was flushed out properly, the stakes would be raised because you'd see how much more evil he is, and therefore it would have much more of an epic feel. It never feels as epic as the original or part two. It kind of feels toned down. It never feels like the stakes are as high as it was in those past movies. And I think it all comes down to the fact that they had a really good villain in this. And I'll go over the villain, but he's a really good villain. They had a really good villain. They just don't spend enough time with him, and they don't flush him out enough, and therefore the stakes don't seem as high, and therefore it doesn't seem as epic. It could have been as epic because the villain is a really good one, and they spent some time with him. They could have flushed him out and made it more epic and raised those stakes, but it never gets that way. It always feels not nearly as epic as it should. And that's it. Those are the two cons. That's the only problems I had with the entire movie. So let's go on to what was great, because there was a lot of things that were great. I'm sorry, everybody, but this movie was actually pretty good. Who would have thought that Paul Feig, a very skilled director who's made several good films in the past, would actually make a good film? I so didn't see that coming. I'm shocked, I know. So first off, I just want to point out, I read in some interviews before I saw this movie that the Holtzman Ghostbusters character would be coded gay. It wouldn't be staying in the film. Apparently Sony's execs stepped in the way And it wouldn't be stated, but apparently the character was coded gay. If you don't know this going in, you probably won't pick up on it. If you know this going in, the film's a lot better. It actually improves the film quite a bit. She flirts with the other Ghostbusters. It's kind of cool. So, yeah, if she was flirting with the other Ghostbusters and you didn't know she's gay, you probably wouldn't even pick up on it. But if you do know, you're like, hey, she's flirting with them. That's cute. Also, there's a scene near the end where Holtzman gives a bit of a speech about how she has no family and she's felt alone for years. And if you're aware that she's supposed to be gay, you kind of realize, oh, she came out of the closet to her parents and they kicked her out of her house. They kicked her out of her home and she had to go out on her own because she came out of the closet. And it kind of just hits you really hard, that scene, if you're aware of the context. So what I'm trying to say is the Holtzman character is really, really a good character, but is not flushed out because they weren't able to say, yo, she's gay, and yo, she was kicked out of her house when she was very young for coming out of the closet. I'm really hoping that there is a part 2 and they get to say those things and flush out that character, because that character has a lot of cool stuff that you could work with. And it's really cool that there's actually the possibility that we could actually have a queer Ghostbuster. And she's one of the coolest Ghostbusters. She's a great character. She's this wonderfully over-the-top, zany, just bonkers character. It's like she realized that she was an outcast and she realized she didn't really fit in. She just decided to roll with it. So I loved her character. I also liked the Patty character. Everybody's been saying that Patty might be a stereotype. A black stereotype, and it might be racist and mean. She is a stereotype, but not in the way that you think. She's street smart, as in she's a historian and she knows about the history of New York. She knows about the backstories of certain buildings. She knows where certain people died. She's obsessed with history, and she's obsessed with the history of the streets, as in street smart. So it's a play on racial stereotypes. It's pointing out a racial stereotype and trying to undermine it and actually flush out her character through it. I saw a movie a little while back called Keanu, and it did a very similar thing. Now, I will admit it's a lot better done in Keanu, and I will admit it's a lot smarter in that film, and I will admit that Patty is the only main black character in this movie, and she's surrounded by white characters, and there wasn't many black people involved in this making this film in general. So I will admit that even though it means well, I can see people misreading this character and seeing it as racist and taking offense to it. And if you did, that's okay. You know, we all read different things out of different things. That's okay. What I will ask is to not harass Leslie Jones, because she's been harassed enough. Just leave her be. But she was a great character. Kevin was also a great character, one of the most funniest characters in the movie. All the Ghostbusters were great characters. This, just like the original, you watch it for the characters. They are so fleshed out and so likable that by the end, they just feel like family and you just want to hang out with them some more. Like, they're all really fleshed out, really nice characters. The comedy, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of comedy in this, a lot of comedy, and a lot of it is in the vein of the original film, sarcastic wit. There are a few gross out jokes, but there's not actually that many. There's just a couple of them. Most of it is sarcastic wit, just like the original, just a bit more over the top and cartoony. And I laughed a lot in this. It's actually a lot funnier than the original. But as I said, because it gets so dedicated to being funny, it doesn't feel as epic as the original, or as epic as it feels like it should. It's just so dedicated to being funny, it just feels funny. Now, there are some scary moments, though. Paul Feig was telling the truth about scary moments. He wasn't lying. The opening itself is actually kind of creepy. It's much in the vein as the original film. And there's also a few jump scares here and there. And the villain, Rowan, he's not really creepy, but he's sadistic. and he gets kind of obsessed with all this power he suddenly gets. He starts out the film as immortal, and he dies midway through, and then he becomes a ghost. So he suddenly inherits all this power he never had before, and he just starts showing it off left, right, and center. Kind of like Freddy Krueger in Nightmare on Elm Street, just showing off his power, showing off what he can do, and just kind of taking it all in. And he has these wonderful, sarcastic, sadistic moments. Like, for example, he throws a piano at someone, like by just moving his hand. The piano flies at someone and smashes the wall. He's like, "Oh, I missed." Like, oh! But he doesn't get much time to do that. He's not in the movie nearly enough. But every time he is in the movie, he does have a sadistic one-liner like that. That's kind of funny, but at the same time kind of unsettling. It really is like a toned-down Freddy Krueger, where he's like obsessed with his power and he just wants to cause harm. The character, if you're curious, the movie lightly explains it, but you can easily fill in the blanks. He was a very smart guy, got high in diplomas, got high in his field, and they found out in his field that he believed in ghosts, and he was made a mockery of, and he was kicked out of his field, whatever field that might have been, and now he's just working as a janitor. So he feels like the world betrayed him, and now he wants to get revenge on the world, and he's literally just dedicated his entire life to killing everyone. He just has dedicated every minute of every hour of every day to killing everyone because he feels so wrong. And that is a disturbing concept. Someone that can be so dedicated to harm that he's willing to kill himself to pull off the job. Yeah, he commits suicide just so he can pull off his grand scheme. Someone that dedicated to evil is kind of creepy, and if they would have flushed that out, this movie would have been a lot more epic. Now, as for what people are wondering about, the cameos, they were wonderful, especially Bill Murray's. If you know the context of how Bill Murray has kind of gone in the way of Ghostbusters 3 for a long time, having him be a villain of sorts and getting in the way of the new Ghostbusters is really fitting and pretty funny, and it's a wonderful inside joke. A lot of the cameos are kind of inside jokes, and they're kind of references that only hardcore fans would get. There's a lot of stuff here for the hardcore fans. It really does at times feel like this was a movie made by the fans, for the fans, and that is well appreciated. So all in all, I would give the movie an 8.5 out of 10. It's not nearly as epic as it should have been, but it's so funny at times it's hard to get mad at. And I would say, yes, not every joke works. I would say for every 3 jokes, 1 joke doesn't work. But every joke that doesn't work fits well with the characters and makes perfect sense with them and feels like natural dialogue for them. So whenever a joke doesn't work, it ends up instead just fleshing out the characters more. So you get to know them more and you get to like them more and you like hanging out with them. And it's just like with the original. It's not about being funny. It's about you're just hanging out with these regular, normal, run-of-the-mill people that are just like you and you feel like you're at home. That's got to be the element that I like best about this. The Ghostbusters in this look like regular women. They look like the women I work with at my job every day. They're just run-of-the-mill people becoming heroes, which was the whole theme of the original. The original Ghostbusters were just run-of-the-mill people being heroes, and this is the same. And it's a restatement of that wonderful message in the original that anyone can be a hero. And just like the original, that's what makes this a really good film. So I would say see it. So 8.5, and no way does this deserve the controversy you got, and no way does anyone involved in it deserve any harassment. They did a bang-up job. I salute you. Cheers.